You want?
Do you want me to do, when I answer this, do you want me to do it into the camera?
Wherever you want.
Look wherever I want.
Well, I mean,
is it going to look rude if I'm looking at the screen?
it's funny. You know, it's fine. I mean, it all look like.
I would probably look around thoughtfully anyway.
Well, absolutely. You just look inside your own head, won't you?
Yeah.
So, hello, Rhys.
Hello.
First off, for legal things, you okay for us to do on YouTube and in a documentary?
Yeah.
Cool. That's done. So, what do you want to know?
I would like to know. You know. Okay. How do they get the toys in the Kinder eggs?
Right. That's a good question, right? I assume first things first. They put them in the little satchels first. So not a satchel. The little
Packet.
thing,
Yeah,
and then they chocolate around it. It'll be a two-sided thing, sealed with like a
Probably a
hot,
very
warm.
boring sort of production line machine, isn't it?
Be a factory. It will certainly be. Oh, it's probably all Chinese kids, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. In the Kinder eggs now.
Yeah, yeah, that's one of the free gifts. Yeah.
You got to assemble them yourself.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah. Well, that was a quick interview.
That's what I wanted to know. Yeah.
Yeah, good. So yeah, the reason I asked that is it's not going to be a formal interview like me asking you questions because that would make me lead the conversation.
Right.
So if I ask what I want from you, if I ask you certain questions, I'll get certain answers. It doesn't really matter what you say in that regard. I'm controlling what happens. So I've been surprising guests with talking to me. Now the difference with this one and all the others is that I was treating the other ones like they were like a media interview anyway to find out.
Right.
But you of course don't have a show to promote anymore.
No.
Because it's over.
Just finished, just now.
So literally about half an hour ago.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Nothing to promote.
But yeah, like in terms of what this documentary is about, what interests you? Like this is basically talking shop.
Okay.
On camera.
Well,
Like, do you what do you see your role as a comedian? Like in terms of, do you see your comedies going somewhere, doing something, or what is your comedy about? What would you want to do with it? You know.
it's not trying to change. Currently, it's not really trying to change anything except maybe perceptions, which sounds pretentious as shit. But I mean that in itself is a perception, isn't it? That I perceive that myself as pretentious there when maybe it's not. It's really just. I just always loved comedy.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I just wanted. Arrogantly, I thought that plays to my strengths. I want to do something a bit like that. It turns out it doesn't. When I started, I was like, fuck it, I'm rubbish. But then now what I want it to be, basically everything I've ever seen and loved has had just some amazing atmosphere to it. So, like, I watch all these stand-up shows, like straight stand-up shows, and I think they're brilliant. I can laugh so much and just leave going, fucking hell, that was so funny. Can we swear on this?
Yeah.
Yeah, can't. Fucking hell, that was so funny. But it's not the same as when you leave one of these shows that has some sort of tech element or like some sort of smoky atmosphere, whether that's actual smoke or just sort of created through the thing. So what I'm sort of gearing towards is sort of next year, I'll maybe, in theory, trying to create that atmosphere. I want people to leave not necessarily going, that is the funniest show in the world.
Yeah.
Maybe going, fucking hell, you can do that.
Yeah.
Which will not happen.
Yeah.
Because I won't. I mean, that might change as well. My priorities might change. But currently, that's what I think that's what my favourite things have been. Like people like Bo Burnham. I mean, which is a bit of a cliche at this fringe.
Yeah.
But I mean, I liked him before he even came to Edinburgh Guys. But yeah, I just leave that show and like even when I saw Dimitri Martin, just because he uses the guitar, it's just a different atmosphere, and I just leave going like fucking hell. It just makes me feel something more than laughter.
What is it about? Like, is it an aura? What is that atmosphere? Because there's a difference between there's that like Liam Williams show this year.
I think that had that.
It had an atmosphere about it.
I think that absolutely had
it had that sense of like those old videos of people smoking in a room and a man walks on stage and he says things.
Yeah.
And that's what Liam's show did. Even though there's a few little bits of, you know, not slides but like things to look at.
But a lot of it was straight stand up, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it still had that atmosphere, and that's created through tech and also the room. And quite stylistically, what Liam's like, is it's like you're in a fucking French film or something.
Yeah.
Watching Liam, and you just get immersed. He just doesn't compromise. That's what it is, basically.
Yeah.
He doesn't compromise. He just does what he wanted to do all along. At no point would he doesn't pander. And I think I do a bit at the moment, and that's because of like fear.
You're
So
afraid
at the top of my show cut this year, I just do a sort of little bit of sort of like fake comparing with this sort of cheering exercise that has a punchline and it's a big laugh, but it's just to sort of go, no, listen, I'm in control. But that's only because, again, with the perception thing, that is me trying to change the perception immediately of them going, oh, fucking hell, a kid's walked on stage. What's he got to offer? And then I suddenly go, no, I'm making you do this now, I'm in control. Subconsciously, that is what I think people will then go, oh, fuck. Just as simple as, like when you go on at a gig, if you go, I mean, I hate doing it, but occasionally I'll go, are we all right? And they'll cheer, and I'll go, oh, I'm sure we can do better than that. Are we all right? And they will do it louder. It just shows, oh, you have got control of the room. And I don't know if, I don't think audiences actually pick up on it consciously, but subconsciously, you just see people relax more when you can do something like that. And that's the only reason I act like that, is just because I'm afraid people think, oh, fucking hell, a child's up on stage. This is going to be shit.
Is comedy then like a protection then? Like this relationship, this idea of control, I find quite interesting because like part of one of the first people I interviewed with Ben Target, because his crowd surfing thing I thought was really interesting.
Yeah,
it has a relationship between that notion of lots of people and trying to get lots of people to do something. Right?
Yeah,
whether it's laughing or for him, it's literally carrying him out of the room, even though he goes on being the most he's not very energetic.
Yeah.
And he turns the room into wanting to carry him out,
like a frenzy of
incredible control, and that sort of sense of like responsibility and control over what a group of people can do. Is that something for you that do you find yourself manipulating an audience, or do you think it's simply part of the act, or how do you discuss?
The only real control. Basically, I just want to prove that I am in control, but I don't really want to then use that control necessarily. The point is, for me, I don't really want to indulge in like a huge bit of audience interaction and collective thing. I want to go, look, I can do that, so don't say anything because I am funnier than you.
Yeah.
Now listen to me.
Yeah.
That's the point. I want to be in enough control that they will shut up and listen and enjoy it.
Yeah.
So no one starts getting restless and they at least go like, oh, a safe pair of hands. So that's it. I just want to be in control, not a lot of control to make a group of people do something yet. Like even today, it's the last show, so I bought party poppers on the way to the show, and then you can't buy party poppers individually because that would be the saddest thing in the world. You have to buy a packet, and so I bought this whole packet, and then I thought on the way, like I was walking to the gig thinking, I've got a whole packet. I only really want one for the start. How can I use this? I thought, what? Maybe if I just, because it's sort of running narrative in my show that there's 3 jokes that are really offensive that I'm worried about. Yeah. And sort of like just when they come up, I sort of just go like, that was one of them afterwards, just in case it doesn't get the right laugh, and then that does to break the tension. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll give loads of the bag of party poppers to someone in the front row and say, like, whenever you think there's a lull, just let off a party popper. Or whenever you think there's one of those offensive jokes, let off the party popper. And then I actually thought, no, that gives him too much control. He can fuck up the gig. Which, so like, I don't want anyone to do anything really. It's just all about like, just face the front, turn your phones off and listen to my shitty little jokes.
Have you ever tried to lose control? Or have you ever felt you have lost control? Or how does that feel?
I've felt like I never had it. Felt like I never had it at a festival once, where it's just the worst gig ever, and I just couldn't really. It was hardly anyone in this tiny little tent in Cornbury Festival. I couldn't even really see or hear anyone. It's just music going around, and I honestly just was on stage just thinking, I bet none of these people are even listening to this. So I just sort of said the words and then went, because I was just like, I just have to do the time, get paid and go. So I never. The only times that it's been properly chaotic to the extent that I've like lost control has been when I probably never had it to begin with. They were just being a bit patient at first and then started going off the rails. Sometimes it feels like you're losing control. I don't know if you find this. If you're having a really good gig and then suddenly it starts dipping, just if the laughs go a bit quieter for a bit, that feels like you're not necessarily control, but it feels like you're losing them as an audience, when really you're not. Just sometimes I watch shows, I don't know if you found this as well, when you watch shows that are really funny, and after about 20 minutes, I'm thinking, I've got no laughs left. Yeah. And I start forcing laughs. Like when I watched Matt Ewan's, I started forcing laughs because I was thinking, this deserves a massive laugh because that is hilarious, but I am done. Like my stomach hurts, I've got no laughs left in me. So I started, same with Jamie Dimitri when I watched that show. I was just like, I was sat silent for one of the characters just because I'd laughed too much at the other three, and I just had nothing left, so I just had to just appreciate it. And then you don't really realise that some people, as a comedian, you would never be arrogant enough to assume they've laughed too much.
Yeah.
No one at the start of the gig, they've all laughed too much at my entrance, and now they won't laugh at all. So you can't. There's so many reasons for people not to be laughing, especially in Edinburgh, that you think you're doing a really shit job, and it turns out you're not. You do quite a good job. It's just that people enjoy things in different ways. And I know comedy, the point is you make a laugh.
Yeah.
But like, if it goes a bit quieter for a minute, it does feel like fucking hell, I'm losing them. I'm losing control. This is slipping out of my grasp. But I don't think it. I mean, not always. Only if it suddenly starts being chaos, people start going mad.
Mm.
But that's very rare at like a 5:30 show.
No, yeah.
And I've never done late and live.
No.
So, yeah, I don't think I've ever. A lot of people want to do late and live because they think it'll make them sort of like part of it. Like, you're a proper comedian now.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to be a proper comedian then. That's what it
that's
is.
what it
Like,
takes.
it's not what I really. Not what I'm aiming for.
What do you think comedy is as an art form? Is it an art form for one thing?
Yes, yeah. I think. I mean, technically it is, but I've seen so much comedy that isn't art.
Yeah.
I could just go, it's not a fucking art form, is it? It's
I've seen so much comedy that isn't comedy though. So.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it's an art. Yeah, I think it can be. I mean, yeah, it is technically. I mean, by definition, it is.
Mm.
And then you see some things that you think are more art than others, but then what does that mean?
Mm.
I mean, yeah, you've got to start asking what is art, which is when it gets, you get really bogged down and have to start smoking weed to answer these questions.
I mean, that's not quite what I do in a PhD course, but it's a bit more intense than that.
I don't actually do that, to clarify. I've only done that once, to watch the In-Betweeners movie. Still didn't find it funny. But, yeah. It's weird. I don't really know. I don't really think I know if it's art. So...
What's stopping you from saying it is?
I honestly don't know what's stopping. Basically,
what makes you think it is? Then is maybe the question.
If I watch, so go back to Bo Burnham's show this year.
Okay.
It's hard to deny that there is art in that is art.
Mm-hmm.
But then watch even fucking my show, just a bloke in a room. I don't know. Yeah, I guess it is art. I guess it's still art.
Yeah.
It's like, it's basically, the reason is, for me, the word art is very positive in my head as something impressive and brilliant. Art means something, which is not what it means.
Yeah.
But for some reason, that's what I associate it with in my head, is this like, fucking hell, it's like art. It's so good, it's art.
Yeah.
So therefore, I am now getting bogged down in the idea that if something is bad, it is not art.
Right,
which is not the case.
No.
But that's what's stopping me, is the fact that I don't know what art means. That is what's stopping me.
I mean, there is an entire subject area dedicated just to finding out what art is, because it's obviously it's a very complex idea.
Yeah.
But I guess that like one.
But yeah, of course, comedy is art, because art is subjective,
and so
being good or bad is irrelevant to whether or not it's art. Yeah, it's art.
Yeah, he's gone for yes. It's a yes. That's made my
Any more questions?
Someone's a yes or no now. It's art, yeah. Like the whole notion of art as comedy as art. I've tried to argue it's not art, it's philosophy.
Right.
Because it's actually more in line with the sort of Socratic tradition of standing in front of people and discussing ideas. I think I do see it as an art form, but I prefer to think of it as like a democratic thing of like.
What's the difference between
art and philosophy?
Between it being art and being an art form?
I don't know. I don't really know. Really, I think there's an art form. It's just sort of there's like mediums, specific mediums. You have like painting, installation, blah blah blah. And I think comedy sort of all comes under performance art.
Right.
But I do think it's separate to that as a different art form. Even though a lot of the time, some people say like Kearns or someone was probably towards that end, or Munnery say.
But at the same time, they've done the same amount of writing.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's not just performance art, because of the
Absolutely.
importance of writing.
Yeah.
And then you see someone who performs like a maniac, like John Kearns, and it's amazing, and you go, fucking what performance? But what fantastic writing.
Yeah.
And I'm big into writing. I think about writing probably more than performance. I care a lot more about writing, because I just think it's so important. Even those, because as I say, even those comics that you do watch and go, what a performance, underneath it all is jokes. They're just hidden. There's still so much content. Even like Dr. Brown, he didn't talk.
Yeah.
It's jokes. He's written jokes.
Yeah.
But he just doesn't say them.
Yeah.
He just acts them. So yeah, in that respect, I guess technically it is closer to philosophy, really.
Have you ever thought of the notion of a documentary being written? Or composed, or...
Yeah, of course, yeah. It's entertainment, isn't it? So it's...
Well, I mean, is it? I mean, you can get depressing forms of documentary, can't you?
Yeah, but I mean, depressing things are still entertaining.
I suppose they just perform a different kind of function.
There's like sad films that are and still entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah, documentaries definitely, because... Well, just the idea that, I mean, nothing's real, is it? So of course,
Well, yeah.
Of course, a documentary is constructed because it's got an agenda normally before it started. So then they manipulate what footage they've got to represent the idea they wanted to get across originally, or whatever they've changed their mind to, and then it becomes a constructed, written thing, whether in advance or sort of during or after. So yeah, absolutely, yeah, documentary. There's no pure documentaries anymore, at least, surely. Maybe I don't know enough about documentaries.
Well, how do you feel right now?
What do you mean?
In regards to your position within this documentary?
I feel quite comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because... I know you personally, and I trust you not to make me look like a dick.
Yeah.
But I am also obviously aware that the one person who can make me look like a dick here is me, and I feel like I have succeeded.
No,
I just I feel comfortable because I trust your intentions more. But also because you're not selling this to a channel, and you're not trying to broadcast this to. I mean, this is I don't know where this is going, but presumably, this is more for you. And obviously a PhD.
Yeah.
But in theory, it's more about the people who are interested in this already, wanting to see what this is about, not trying to inspire, here's an advert, watch this. Honestly, trust me, if you're not interested in football, this documentary is so entertaining that you will love it, because it's about corruption as well.
Yeah.
And violence and all this crazy stuff behind the scenes, and sex, everything's about sex. So just bear that in mind. But you don't have to do that, because I don't think you're putting it on TV to the morons who will go, I'm not interested in comedy, why would I want to see this? And you go, no, but look, there's lasers.
But I mean, this will still be as we go on YouTube, probably a finished cut or go on YouTube, and it might end up in some sort of film festivals here and there, or if it ever gets that far, it might even end up being broadcast. I've not thought that far ahead really, but like the main point is this real? To what extent do you find your relationship now that you're on camera, now that you're part of a documentary? How does it change your relationship to the notion of the reality of other documentaries? Because, or even just simply, what do you think my agenda is? What do you think this documentary could mean or become? In terms of the relationship between this and the truth of your art, which is comedy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very.
A big question. We can go through it in smaller sort of steps. Because I asked you about 5 different questions.
Yeah.
To complete them tangent.
Yeah.
But
so. What's the first?
First off, how real is this? What is this in regards to real?
I think it's fairly real.
Yeah.
It's just a conversation that I think me and you could quite easily have anyway.
Yeah.
Because we tend to talk about this sort of stuff. I think we could have a conversation about this anyway.
What was the conversation we were having before now? Because once I introduced the camera, we talked very specifically about different kinds of things.
We were talking about free shows, the benefits of free shows, and what my decision on being free or paid next year based on...
We were talking about your career.
Yeah.
Which is something we wouldn't talk about on camera necessarily, because it's kind of a more of a private thing. But immediately when I brought out the camera, we discussed broader notions and broader ideas.
Yeah.
So we've sort of eroded a sense of what was real and what we're capturing right now.
But yeah, potentially, yeah. I mean, I would not be averse to discussing what we had already discussed on camera. I don't mind.
But it wouldn't be of particular interest to the...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe you're right, because that's not interesting. But
so we are thinking of audience here then.
But this documentary isn't about my career.
Sorry, mate. I've been every single one of your shows.
Drop, mate. It's not about my career. The documentary's broader. So I think we are... I mean, we're talking broad enough, and it's still being real and true without it being.
Your career sits within a lot of these debates, anyway. You know, within comedy. I mean, I love having these discussions of literally talking shop. I find them so interesting. I'm sure people outside of comedy will also find them interesting, because I'm not really part of that world necessarily. I do comedy occasionally, and I enjoy doing it, but I'm not really part of the industry in any sort of shape. You know, but I think you are certainly more immersed in it. You know, you've got agents, you've got a trajectory, and you're friends with sort of people who are definitely. I mean, I assume are you full time? Yeah. So you're there and you're talking. You know, so your access to that sort of industry talking shop is a lot more intense than me. But even so, I think a lot of people will be interested in the sort of things that we discuss. Is like,
absolutely, yeah. It is interesting. I just always worry about how indulgent it is. So, I mean, I still live in the town I grew up in, and I've still got all my mates there aren't comics. So then when you come to Edinburgh and all you talk about is comedy for a month, and then you go back there, so how was it? And then the next thing you know, 2 weeks have gone by, and I still haven't said the shows were good yet. And well, the thing is, you get to the venue and there's like some seats in the wrong place, and the seconds are good. It's really hot, and then so I just worry. I know this documentary's about that, but they're always in the back of my head. It's more of a personal thing rather than like, is this documentary real? It's more about, am I being an indulgent piece of shit all the time, constantly, perpetually, in every conversation I think about that, and then the answer is always like, yeah, actually, mate, you are. Tone it down a bit. Ask them a question.
But do you think your question about this notion of self-indulgence is simply just actually a reflection on you rather than the process?
It totally is about me. It's about my insecurities.
But But then we're getting to something quite interesting. Is all comedy about insecurities?
I think almost every human action about insecurities. I think every human action is either the pursuit of sex or insecurity. That's what inspires every human action. So yeah, absolutely, comedy is about insecurity and the pursuit of sex. I mean, it'd be a waste of time if it wasn't for the second one.
Well, then isn't it more about the closest art to life then? In that it reflects that same drive of trying to get laid.
Maybe. I don't know if it's any closer than any other art form, because I think all art is really insecurity as well.
And trying to get laid.
So, like music, especially, like all that sort of stuff is all sort of the same, isn't it? Yeah, trying to get laid, or you're just insecure about something, so you're masking it with fucking a beat, masking it with some synth. But it's so I don't know if it's any true. I mean, technically it must be, because you are saying out loud quite often the worst things about you to elicit laughs. I actually think being a comedian is almost healthier than not, because of the constant self-examination and self-analysis. I mean, it's really difficult because of how often you have to do that, and it's really hard to do that. But it eventually makes you a better person. So yeah, if you just think about, I mean, I've said this before on stage, but the person I hate the most in my life is me 6 months ago, because it's just, what an arsehole, like what a dick. I'll watch this back in 6 months and be like, you changed shit, you don't know anything. You're a kid, you don't know anything about the world. But I am as old as I've ever been, and as smart as I've ever been. So it's really hard for me to see past that and go like, no, you'll know more soon. So stop opening your mouth, because this is the smartest I've ever been. So like, this is as good as I've ever been at everything, except fitting in small spaces. So I just think, So yeah, comedy's healthy because of the self-examination and the self-analysis that causes you to go, because when you become a comedian, the first things you think of to talk about, like, what's funny about me? So a lot of people start by talking about their hometown, because they think that's what defines them when it isn't. A lot of people start by talking about their name, if they've got an interesting name. Sometimes that can be really good. Sometimes it can be really shit when people think their name's funny and it isn't. And then you talk about your family. So basically you start going, what's funny about me? And really you just look at what surrounds you, because that's sort of easy. That's why so many people talk about like their dad, for example, and I do as well. But mine's all made up. And then as you move on, like a lot of the best comedians, like proper straight stand-up comedians, they stop looking out, they start looking in. And go like, no, what actually does any of this mean, and how do I actually feel? Like the way Richard Pryor would do that, and Louis does that, and Bill Hicks and people like that go like, well, what does this really mean to me, like within myself, emotionally? Alfie Brown does that. and it's really a lot better. It's a lot more soulful. Simon Amstel, perfect example. It's just a lot more of a soulful thing, and it's just more entertaining to watch than going like, what's around me. And then once you get comfortable doing that and going inside yourself and analysing that and figuring out who you are, then you start looking out and going, well, what's the world about? Really, you go look past what's around you. You're beyond that, beyond your hometown, your family, and all that sort of stuff. And then you go, no, what politically or socially or anything in the grand scheme of the world? What's my placement in that, and how does that affect things? I think that's kind of the process of a lot of comedians. Is you go, what's there? Okay, I've done that. What's in here? Right, now I'm comfortable. Now I'm good. What's really out there, while constantly in connection within here? If that makes any sense whatsoever.
No, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I kind of sort of, that's something I kind of sort of realised as I was saying it then.
Yeah.
But I kind of, it's obviously been a thought in my head, but I've never articulated it before. But yeah, I think that's probably fairly accurate.
That process of stand-up is quite interesting in terms of articulating what is inside anyway. Especially when you write stuff. It's only the first time you really... Because other art forms, like theatre, you rehearse.
Yeah.
I don't know, a lot of people sort of do their stand-up in the mirror or something. But I mean, I don't know if you do that. I've never heard of anyone up beyond a certain level doing that. It's just, your rehearsal is the show. It's always on stage that you try things out for the first time in different spaces than, say, your full hour, say.
Yeah.
But...
Well, I'm beginning to realise I don't think that's good enough.
No?
I don't think that's enough. Watching Bo Burnham this year, I've gone, fucking hell, everyone needs to rehearse more. There's not a wasted syllable in Bo Burnham's show. Not a single bit action out of place. There's no way he got that just from doing the show. Just from going, I'll just try it on stage. Because you forget stuff and you have adrenaline in you anyway that makes you do things differently and you can't see yourself. So I think I don't know this, he might just be like the genius we all know he is. He might just be a fucking freak who can just do it. But I wouldn't be surprised if he gets like a studio for a few days and just like acts out and maps out where he's going to be on stage at certain points, what he's going to do.
When you get to his sort of level, there's a team around you, isn't there? They would have maybe writers,
a really good director or something.
Yeah, exactly. There'll be that process, which is fascinating in itself because you just got to trust it. It's funny because how do you know it's funny? You can. It's what you want it to look like. You want it to be the most aestheticized, visually or orally. But is it funny? You can't know until you test it out.
Yeah, I think a lot of comics are different with the idea of what we were just talking about with like rehearsal and in the mirror and stuff. Because I was watching Sean Walsh's show this year, and it gets kind of the same. There wasn't a wasted word, and I noticed I watched it really early on where he clearly hadn't fully learnt it. We didn't have any notes, but what he did is just rather than, because normally I do that thing out loud. I'm very sort of, you probably noticed in this, I like a lot of ums and likes and fucking what I'm thinking, because I guess I'm scared of silence. I don't know. Probably something deep within me that is like, no, there cannot be silence, you have to do something. And when I'm watching Sean Walsh, I noticed that in between bits, when he was trying to just go, what's the next bit again, what's the next bit? That's where I normally would just in between, after the laughs died down, I'd say something like, yeah, it's weird, man. Or something. I was just like, that's what I'm talking about, that's what I'm trying to say. Or just anything that just doesn't matter is fodder and then can just link to anything. Something neutral. But Sean Walsh stopped the bits. He finished a bit, the laugh died down, and he just stood there like this. Oh yeah, also, have you noticed? Just stood thinking. No one would have left that gig having noticed that. No one would have, it was brilliant, but he kept standing still in silence for a bit. No one would have realised. And I was just really impressed. And his show seemed quite rehearsed as well, but I imagine it isn't, knowing him personally. I imagine it isn't. He seems like kind of guy, no, you just go on stage and do it. And, maybe he's just good like that. That's just how his mind works socially as well. Because I was listening to a Zach Galifianakis interview on the Pete, what's his name? Fucking that American Comics podcast. You Made It Weird. Pete Holmes.
I heard that one.
Zach Galifianakis on Pete Holmes' podcast, and I noticed this thing that he does that I've not heard anyone else on that podcast do. Any other comedian gets asked a question, and there is dead air for like 10 seconds every time. While Zach Galifianakis is thinking of the answer about his life. So he doesn't, most comedians just go, yeah, well I guess the thing with that is, instead of that he just goes, it's because of this. And then he just like that. I mean, I thought it was fucking incredible that he did that. It really like changed everything for me. The idea that you can just wait, like you don't have to. You can just wait and think about it. That I mean, everyone always says think before you speak, and then he actually does it for 10 seconds each question and properly considers it before answering. I just was so impressed by that. So I think maybe that's important. Maybe silence is more important, and maybe rehearsal and not wasting time is an important thing. It's just more impressive. It's a show. Then I think that's why Bo Burnham is sort of unique to other comics, because he's not a stand-up, is he? He's doing a show. It's not, this is my stand-up act, which is where you kind of want, if you're watching a stand-up act, you kind of want them to be as close to themselves as possible, and it kind of like that whole thing of, I could be mates with him. But Bo Burnham is not that. It's you are distanced from it and watching him perform for you.
You're watching a genius.
Yeah, so you're like, there is a fourth, no matter even if he breaks it by doing something, there is a fourth wall still, because he's not pretending to be your mate. You're like, have you ever noticed? Or whatever. And even non-observational comics, there's still an element where you think like, yeah, I could have a drink with him after the show. But with Bo, I don't think anyone thinks that with Bo Burnham. Because, well, he's got such a disdain for the audience for a start, that if you know, you wouldn't want to. But just because you're so aware, this is like it's like a play. It's like watching a play. And you don't ever watch a play and think, oh, I could have a drink with that actor after the show. No. Because this is a character.
Do you think he's a character?
Yeah, he plays a character on stage. Yeah. Definitely, yeah.
I was thinking, going back to that idea of the pauses, I've always found it interesting. Like, you know that bit in that magician film about that old magician? Is it the one with you... The one with David Bowie in it?
Yeah.
The something. Anyway, there's an old magician who always carries always pretends to be really sort of old, but he's always carrying, so that it looks like when he's carrying a fishbowl between his legs, that's just how his bow legs are all the time. Right. And so that sort of sense of Zach Galifianakis, he's got a very slow delivery constantly, meaning that when he does do that pause, even if he isn't even thinking, it means that other times when he is, it feels like the natural rhythm. Like Tim Heidecker, I always notice this in podcasts. He always has a very deliberate sort of pause. He'll say a word, then pause, and that sort of style of doing the comedy, and it gives you that sort of space to work with. Yeah. But you actually get a laugh from that little sort of the gesture of pausing. Yeah. A lot
of the best comics develop their own rhythm. Like Hannibal Buress has his own rhythm.
Absolutely.
That I mean, if I listen to a Hannibal Buress CD and then do a gig, I just do my set in Hannibal Buress's rhythm.
Isn't that funny how you do actually try to adopt these sort of rhythms by mistake?
Yeah, and a lot of people. It's harder to notice when British stand-ups do it, but I've noticed a lot of, because I do it as well. I do like a Louis rhythm, and like he does these really minimal hand movements, Louis. So he's really gesturing. That's Woody Allen.
Close enough though.
He's really gesturing a point while keep going up. Then he comes down again for the real fucking punchline, and it's never like da 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 da. It's like da 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 da. It's too much almost all the time on purpose. Yeah. For the real fucking asshole guy douche. Yeah. I don't know. There'll be something in there that's like a bit much, and that's why the laugh comes at first with just like the change of rhythm, but then for like, oh fucking it's still going so it's even more funny. Yeah. And I've just noticed the British stand-up starting to do that, but you can't really tell because it's in a British accent, and they're not using the same content. They're not saying arsehole douche. They're saying like their own little bullshit things about queuing, but they're doing it with these tiny gestures, because I just find myself doing it as well sometimes in certain clubs actually, where I could picture Louis doing a set. Like if it's a tiny little dive that looks a bit like the Comedy Cellar, and but if it's really good, I feel like Louis C.K. on stage. Also if it's downstairs, basically. If it's down in the basement. Basically the Tron's quite a good example, right? If the Tron was full, because you get that rolling laugh in rooms like that you don't get in club, in like, well maybe the Comedy Store, but not in like any theatres. You don't get the same rolling laugh. Well, I don't. And so you do that thing with Louis where you kind of like, just the laugh's always there, but it's just changing volume for him, like when you see him at the Comedy Cellar. And then you just have to, because there's no stage space, he just minimalises these movements to just like tiny little, I can't stop doing that because that's what it is. It's just these tiny, like that. And I just, I find myself doing it as well and thinking like, yeah, I'm Louis fucking CK, mate.
Do you think non-comics have ever, I mean, it's weird because you see like muggles, people, audiences, punters. Do you think they notice that? Or is it, no. is it, or do they notice it subconsciously and they understand it? Does everything have an impact? Is everything important in how you do things? Do you find yourself doing the same gestures and maybe changing them up to try and get a funnier way of doing a joke? How does that process work? Of getting
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I'll change like the intonation of a phrase, or I'll change the action, what I do in the action. And in different rooms you've got to change it as well. So you got to basically in like a theatre, you have to make everything bigger. Whereas in a club, everything could be a lot more subtle and a lot more. But then that's the interesting thing. If you're doing a club with hardly any floor space, so everything has to be smaller and it's more subtle. Then if you do one bit and make that bit really big, that bit really kills, and then you can go back into it and it kills again because they just sort of appreciate it. Basically, yeah. So the trick is, I think, so in those things, it depends what kind of set you've got. But in mine, there's a bit midway through where I get very angry about nothing. It's like, classic comedy construct. It's like, I'm angry about something that doesn't matter. Ha ha ha. And I'm pretending to get angry because, no, I want to be tackling the issues. That's what comedians do. They just tackle the issues. And the joke in that bit is, when I wrote that, I thought, wouldn't it be funny if there's like a young comedian who really wants to tackle the issues, but he says outwardly, I'm not allowed to because the older comics won't let me. And I say outwardly, I say that in the show, because the older comics won't let me tackle the issues. But then he goes, you know what, this is my show, I'm going to tackle the issues. And he starts doing it, turns out he's got nothing to say. But I just thought it'd be a really funny concept to do that. So I do that in the show. I'm like, they won't let me, did they? They say do this, do that. They say don't tackle the issues. And I go, no, let's tackle the issues, fucking do it. I'm tackling the issues. Then I start addressing some of the issues, and I've got basically like just a few shitty jokes because I've got nothing real to say about them. And in that bit I get really angry, and I have noticed that in certain environments, if I do make it really big in a theatre, it gets like a normal laugh. If I am being quite normal and still in a club, and then I do that bit, suddenly I'm angry and I'm big, it fucking destroys. Because people go like, because it's so silly, the joke is so silly as well. To be doing that much, to be putting that much into it for like a very silly ending, I think it just emphasises everything. So yeah, I don't know if audiences pick up on whether or not you're doing similar gestures to other comedians. I mean, some people have such clear voices, don't they? So like a lot of comics are quite Josh Widdicombe at the moment, in just the way they go up and down at certain times. A lot of one-liner comics have very similar da-da-da-da-da-da kind of Jimmy Carr kind of way, which I don't think anyone would say, oh, you're just being Jimmy Carr. No. I think they go like, oh, it's just a one-liner comedian. That's kind of how one-liners work, unless you listen to someone like Mitch Hedberg. I don't think they necessarily, unless it's really obvious. I saw a comic yesterday basically doing a bad Josh Widdicombe impression, and I think the audience probably noticed, because it was just, if they know who Josh Widdicombe is, then it was so Josh Widdicombe. And do
you reckon that comment you?
I reckon he's probably been told it in reviews.
Well, is it a real person? Like a significant?
No, they've been reviewed, fairly new.
Yeah.
They've been reviewed definitely, and I imagine it's been mentioned in reviews because it's very clear. If Bennett's reviewed him, it would have been mentioned.
I'll tell the camera, tell me who it is. Yeah. So that, again, that last bit was good.
What about, it's much harder. So I saw this guy yesterday.
No, that bit, the bit after about observational
comedy. Yeah, I think observational comedy is a lot harder to get good at. Once you get good at it, it becomes quite an easy thing where you can just go, I've just got this sorted forever now. I just keep observing, like everything new that happens. I'll keep observing it and all the new trends. But until then, it's really hard as a new comic to be good at observational comedy, because that kind of comedy looks like it's got no jokes in it.
Yeah,
and it's got loads of jokes in it, so it looks like you just have to go look at that. But it takes a lot longer to get good at observational comedy. And what was the last thing I said?
Everything's been observed.
Oh, because everything's been observed. Everything's been observed. So you can only observe. Very gradually, you can only observe new things. Yeah. The mandrel's been done, and that's a very modern one. Yeah, it's been done to death now. Yeah. And even if it hasn't yet been observed, it's about to by Josh Widdicombe. So, and really well, because Josh Widdicombe actually did get good at it really quick. He got so good at it so quick, and here's why Josh Widdicombe got so good so quick. Because Josh Widdicombe is brilliant at analogies. He doesn't do that just anymore. When he first started getting big, it was just a bunch of amazing analogies. That's like this, da-da-da, that's like da-da-da. And his ones weren't shit. So like sometimes you can watch that comedy and you go, fucking, he's just saying what everything's like. It's just similes. I saw a Paul Foot set once. There's a clip of Paul Foot at Old Rope. Old Rope is a gig where you have to do new material in London. And you have to there's like a noose on stage. And if you're doing old stuff, you have to hold on to the noose. And if you can only let go if you're doing new stuff. And Paul Foot goes on, I think it's still on YouTube, it's so funny. It's 7 minutes, the video. And he goes on, and first he's like, I was not happy with the clap. So he goes back off, he keeps coming on, and he goes, but this man wasn't clapping. Keeps going back on and off, and keeps saying, oh God, I want to start, because I've got an announcement to make, I've got something to tell you people, but I can't start because I'm not happy with the ambiance in the room. And he keeps going off, and they're only coming on and off. And at one point he comes on and says, I know you probably think this isn't normal, this is not what you expect from a comedy night. You want to see all the comedians come on with their carefully constructed similes, like that. And I always think of that. And then the joke in the whole set is that he comes on and he goes, okay, finally, we've got the applause right. And then the red light comes on, and he'd like to say, get off. And he says, I've just got time for my announcement, and that is that I haven't prepared. And then he leaves. It was so funny. And but just that line, you want to see all these other comics with their carefully constructed similes. It really undermines comedy, doesn't it? To say that mainstream comedy is a lot of similes. But he's right. He is right. There's a lot of, have you seen this? That's like doing this in a different context. And that can be brilliant. I mean, look at Seinfeld. Fucking hell. It can be brilliant. But yeah, that's I think how like a lot. Widdicombe got really good really quick because he's just always been brilliant. I imagine he was brilliant them socially before he was a comedian. He'd just say them to his mates. And then he was just like, fucking hell, let's actually write some of these. And he's still brilliant at them, but now he's sort of like, he does a lot more than just that now. He doesn't rely on that.
I've not seen him in ages.
I think he's very good. It's hard, even if like observational comedy is not your sort of thing, it's very hard to deny. I mean, a lot of the big guys doing it are big for a reason, that's because they are very talented. And it's so fucking hard. Observational comedy is really hard without just doing an analogy. It's really hard to do. Because everyone just think, new comics always just think, I do observations because you just get laughs of recognition straight away. But you don't. People don't care anymore.
Well, more important, I think, people will observe it themselves.
And sometimes, people expect that that's enough, like, you need to have the perfect observation is something that people have observed without realising. You can't just go, isn't parking weird? No, it's a park. That's not enough. But if you have a little observation like how only men go in the loft, that everyone goes, like that's a McIntyre routine, isn't it? It's just like, and my wife, and then he extends it brilliantly into, there could be anything in there. She will never know. I could have like loft girls going around serving me drinks and just popping up to the loft and all that sort of stuff, which is really nice. But that's because he's just realised, his wife always says, can you take this to the loft? And he goes, well, she's never been in the loft. And he goes, that's probably true of everyone. But no one, you wouldn't necessarily think that. You wouldn't be talking to your mates and going, you ever noticed how it's only ever you in the loft?
It's like that sort of thing where great installation artists as well. People always think, my son could have done that. It's just, my 3-year-old child could have done it. There's always that, the answer is like, but you haven't done it yet.
You didn't. You
someone who did have the idea that's so obvious that no one's actually made it. No one's, made it clear.
Exactly. And also a lot of comics at the moment.
Do you want to grab and hold all that? Do you want another?
I'm alright, thanks.
Keep talking, by all means.
Alright, I also noticed a lot of comics who look like me, and there's a couple of us, like to do stuff about, they're all in these big matey groups of lads.
Oh shit, man, it's 8:10.
Oh shit, is it?
Yeah.
Shit.
When do you want to get up to?
I better start getting my shit together.
Yeah.
Cool. Shower.
We got nothing to promote, so don't worry. I would usually say your name in your show.
Alright.
No, thanks very much. Sorry, I cut very.
That's alright. No, I didn't realise that's time's flown by. Talking about that shit.
This is exactly
the next thing I was going to say was going to be fucking bitchy and bullshit. Anyway.
Probably best I didn't say it.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thanks very much, man.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed this.
I'm eating a thing, fucking documentary now.
Louis Theroux style.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. I'll try.
Cool. Cheers.